A Swift Kick in the Ass, episode 89.
All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curren and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass, living life on your terms.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart. I'm joined with my lifelong childhood friend, John Curren. Today's episode, Why Mom Was Right About Gratitude. Welcome to the show, John.
Hey, Tom. Thank you. It's good to hear your voice and to see your face. You know, we try to have a green content on Swift Kick in the Ass, meaning we don't like to really time this with the seasons. But as we near the end of the year, we are thinking a lot about how thankful we are, and we're grateful for all that we have around this time of the year, and hopefully our fans are also grateful. And I think it's a great time to start looking at your life and thinking really about what we're grateful for and why we're grateful. But before we get into that, there is a big difference between being grateful about something and being thankful. With Thanksgiving coming up, we know through our history books that the first Thanksgiving was with the Pilgrims, right? Or I guess that's what we consider here in the States. But being thankful is really relief that something unpleasant or dangerous did not occur. And if you think about the first Thanksgiving, wasn't that the truth? The Pilgrims had survived, they were in a new place, and there was a lot of disease and starvation and a lot of hardship placed on the Pilgrims at the time. And I'm sure that they did really feel a lot of relief. Because there were a lot of, that they made it through. They made it through a lot of unpleasantness and a lot of danger. But today, what we're really talking about is gratefulness. And when we're grateful, it really means that we're grateful to people. And maybe they did us a favor, or they were kind to us. And Mom was right. When we're grateful to people, sometimes there are strings attached.
John, I'm grateful. I just spent a very nice staycation with my wife, Jennifer. We spent some time together. It was my 50th birthday a couple months ago, and we didn't get the time to go away because at the time we went camping with family. And I really had just wanted to get away with her and spend some quality time. It had been probably 10 years. I think we had a trip to Jamaica 10 years ago that we actually spent time together with no kids, no one else involved, no worries. So we did that. We went to a local hotel that was very nice on the beach, and spent a lot of time. And it gives you that time to be grateful. And me and John have been talking personally about Stoic philosophy. And I think I was listening to an interview with Ryan Holiday today, and he's famous for, some of his Stoic beliefs. And he was talking about gratitude, John, and just coincidentally, he was saying how important it is not to only be thankful and thankful for things, you're thanking God for certain things in your life or whatever. But if you're thankful for someone, he said it's very important to go show them that you're thankful.
Yes.
Do something for them to express the gratitude, and it will cement it down, and then you'll really be grateful, and it will show, and your heart will know that it's showing.
Yeah, I wanted to go back and touch upon one point. When you said that you were thankful for your wife, and how I had mentioned that there's sometimes strings attached. There's a law of reciprocation that exists. And what that is basically is that typically when someone does something nice, they expect something nicer done for them in return. Uh, Not saying that's right, but I think it's kind of funny, Tom, that when you went away with your wife and you're thankful for that, and there were strings attached to to that thankfulness, wasn't there? Because once you got back from the beach, you had to start working your honey-do list. Putting up the shades.
Yeah, that wasn't really tied with the. Yeah, it wasn't tied with the
No, I know it wasn't tied.
staycation. That was the other day of gratefulness, which is Thanksgiving is coming up, and we have all our family coming over. So yes, the blinds that weren't working in the front had to be taken down and replaced. The blinds that were in my son's room that were broken, yeah, they had to be replaced. The yard had to be cut, which she did.
Always something.
Yep. The laundry had to be put away. I mean, there was a lot of things to do. The homework had to be checked. I mean, a lot of things that had to be taken care of just to get back into swing of things, and also to get ready for our big Thanksgiving feast.
Yeah, and when I was talking about the strings, I was not saying the strings that your wife put on you. I mean, I think those strings just went along with the circumstance that you were in. So both you and your wife were able to get away, and I think that's wonderful. But there was also a price to pay, and that price that you paid was all the long list of things that you had to do to prepare for the holidays coming up.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned strings, because talking about the Stoic tradition, I know you had picked up a copy, and so did I, of Meditations from Marcus Aurelius, who was the last of the 5 good emperors of Rome. And he made this book called Meditations, and he didn't create it to be a book. It was his personal journal. It's just that, one of his followers or one of his, servants had found these papers and probably either auctioned them off or traded them or what have you, because he knew that, this is worth something. This is the wisdom of the emperor. And it turned out to be one of the most famous and supposedly one of the most complete forms of philosophy that we have. And,
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Stoic philosophy, it goes all the way back to the Roman Empire around the time of 300 BC. So this was actually before Christianity. And at that time, Christianity was actually seen as a cult, as well as Bakism and hedonism and all these other kind of groups. It was a way of thinking, a way of life that many of the Roman elite and the well-educated and the well-off lived their life. It was a very simple way of life that really looked at your character and looked at life as opportunities to make improvements to your character, to develop your character, to grow as a person.
And John, probably to sum it up, I know it's a lot more involved in this, but one of the main things that they like to say is there's things you can control and there's things you can't. So the things you can't, you let them go, because there's nothing you can do about it. So if someone cuts you off in traffic, let it go, because it just is. Now, if it's something that you can control, then you can get upset about yourself, but you can change and work on it and improve it. But if it's something that's outside of your control, there's no use getting mad at it.
Yeah, in this episode isn't actually really about a background on Stoic philosophy, but you'll be hearing more about it in future episodes. It's really interesting, and I think it really aligns very closely with creating personal and positive change in your life. And I think that it's not really a far cry from what our followers and what we think and how we live our lives. It's just amazing.
So now, with this big lead up, that was just basically give you backstory on what I was about to say about the strings when you're talking about strings attached. Yep. Marcus Aurelius happens in his book, The Meditations. In there, he talks about gratitude, and basically, to sum it up, I'm not going to read it word for word, but he says there's 3 different types of people. The first person is that person with the strings attached. They give you something expecting something in return. The second person is the guy that gives you something hoping that maybe something in the future, or you're in his debt. Like, all right, I'll do this for you, but you owe me one, right? The
Right.
third guy, which he says is what everyone should aspire to be, is the one that gives with no thought of anything in return. He was equating it to like bees making honey and, all different animals. But he was saying that, if you do something for someone and don't expect anything in return, that we as a whole, it will eventually come back to you. Because the Stoics believe that everything's connected, and eventually, something good's going to come back and come out of that.
Yeah, and it's not really going out of your way to be nice. It's just from a Stoic perspective, it's what you feel right in doing. It's actually following your own nature, I really think, and developing that within yourself to say, you know what, I really want to be kind. I really want to be gentle. I want to help this person. I want to help this group. I want to do something positive and something good, not expecting to have that reciprocated back or to get something out of it, for that particular act, or you're not doing it for ulterior motives. You're doing it because you feel that it's important. And to me, I think that impacts all of us in today's society. Not doing things because you want to do it, because you feel it's the right thing to do, is a much better way to approach helping others than doing something for your own selfish reasons and wanting and expecting something back.
And people recognize that, John, and not only people but children. If you have kids like John and I do, they notice when you are giving and give something without expecting something in return, and they pick up on that, and eventually that will be ingrained in their behavior.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the takeaways from today's episode is for us and our followers, our fans, our listeners, to think about people in your life that have impacted you, that have helped make you into the person that you are today. And that could be actually good or bad. I mean, let's just face it. Sometimes we do learn what not to do from people as much as we learn what to do. My dad was a great man. I loved my dad with all my heart. And I learned much more of what to do from him than what not to do. But I'd be lying if I said that that's all I learned is what to do from my father. I learned a lot of what not to do from my dad as well. I think there's two sides to that, and we all benefit by recognizing that, hey, you know what, we're not perfect, and what is given to us actually has a expiration date on it. We don't know when things are going to come in and out of our life. So as you're thinking about the people who have influenced you and made you into who you are, take action. Talk to those people if you can. And, that's my suggestion, is take this conversation to the people that you love and care about and let them know how they have impacted you. Hopefully in a good way. And you're not saying, yeah, you know what? I learned not to do that from you, buddy. That might not fall very well, but
I've learned something from your father that I shouldn't do, John. Drive around in a convertible with a martini and honk at young girls as you're driving down the street. Because I remember your dad doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that, but I am not doubting it. I mean, it was a much different age.
Yeah, it was.
Back then. I have to constantly remind my kids to say, you know what, when I learned how to drive, seatbelts weren't even around, really. I mean, they were there, but no one used them, and you certainly were not required to use your seatbelts. We had those bench seats where you would kind of slide across the car.
Oh, I can remember. I remember vividly me and you when we were little kids playing in the back of my mom's station wagon.
Oh yeah,
Driving down the street with no seatbelts on. Back by the rumble seat, and you know, making faces at the car behind us. Not shooting moons when we're that clever yet, but that came later.
Yeah, but going back to the suggestion, I think by recognizing how different people have shaped your life, whether it be good or bad, I think that is a step forward to really finding happiness, because it's recognizing who you are as a person and what made you that way. And by sharing that with others, I know that I've done this in the past. I mean, way before I ever even read about Stoic philosophy, but I have told people and thanked them for what they've given me. And most of the times, and I'd be curious I'd be curious to see if this was also your experience, that most people are totally unaware and they're caught off guard that they were teaching you anything or giving you anything to be thankful for. They were hopefully doing that out of the goodness of their own heart, and not looking for something in return. They were doing it because that came from deep within inside them, and they were sharing a part of themselves with you. And that's what I'm asking all of you to do as well, is to share yourself with others and let them know how they have influenced you, and be thankful, and not actually thankful because, again, that's relief that something unpleasant or dangerous didn't occur. Be grateful to those people for what you've learned. We all think, especially with parents, our parents give us so much throughout our lives. Most parents do, at least. And they sacrifice and they give and they care for us and they nurture us. And one day they're going to be gone. And one day we're going to be gone. And we don't know when that will be. We can't control that, but we know it's inevitable. Make sure that you tell the people that you love and care about how you feel and what you think, because you may not have a chance to do that later on.
Yeah, and what we give to others, it's far more valuable than what we might take for ourselves. John and I, before the episode, we were talking about, I had just gone through living in South Florida, Hurricane Irma, and FEMA came down, and FEMA gave assistance to the people that were struggling by offering like $1,400 reimbursement if you lost perishable foods from your power being out and so what have you. However, when FEMA came, they would fill up these football stadiums, John, with thousands and thousands of people waiting in line for this assistance. However, when I saw the news reports of them, a lot of them were hanging out and joking, and there was people there that didn't need assistance. They were going to take the free handout as an advantage. And meanwhile, there's places like Puerto Rico that do need the handout and they're not getting them. So one thing that happens is if someone is giving you something, don't take advantage of it. Don't take more than is necessary. And just because you can get it for free doesn't mean you should take it.
Yeah, no, that's, I agree. One of the reasons why I think the Stoic philosophy is so interesting to me is because, and I've heard this before. I've thought of this before. If you look at history, we recognize that the Roman Empire was huge, and it was very prosperous, and it's one of the great civilizations, right, of ancient times. But the Roman Empire fell. And during that time, there was the rule of the people, who really had the power, because the power of the people took down the Roman Senate and such. But the Roman Senate had the authority over the people. And when they talk about authority, they thought of authority as the prudent use of power. Well, in the Senate's eyes, the Roman Senate's eyes, the prudent use of power was to keep the population happy, keep food on their tables, keep them entertained, keep them preoccupied with things that are maybe not as important, such as entertainment. We all know about the Colosseum and about the circuses back in Roman times, whereas there were fights to the death in the Roman Colosseums. There were people that were, put in the same ring as wild animals, lions, and ripped to shreds, and in front of crowds, and the crowds would just go, the gladiators, the fighting to the death. It was that was done on purpose to keep people really fat and happy, so that they really would not try to upsert the power of the government. And I have to say, I wonder sometimes if we aren't closer to that in modern day society than we think. I don't know if we really learned the lessons from the Roman Empire, because I see a lot of it now. Look at all the quote unquote reality TV that's going on. It's to keep people entertained. It's to keep people from really thinking about life. It's society is pushing that we work all day. We work all of our lives, and we slave and we toil, and suffering is going to be part of life. That's something that we can't necessarily control. But through the suffering, through the obstacles that we face in life, we grow as people, and when we address the obstacles, when we develop the strength and the wisdom and the knowledge to overcome whatever obstacles are faced our way, the suffering is replaced with our own development and our own changes in our life.
And it's funny that you talk about Gladiator, John, because I was thinking of that movie with Russell Crowe, and Marcus Aurelius made a small appearance in there. I think it was his son who was the next emperor. But wasn't a very good emperor, and he's the one that's featured in that Gladiator movie where he's given a thumbs up and thumbs down to kill people. And
yeah, it's very interesting to me, but I think I just mention it because I'd like people to think about their lives and how they can make them better. That's why we have the Swift Kick in the Ass. That's why we do this show. We recognize that the struggle is inevitable. And I was thinking about this yesterday, and that, the struggle, the battles that we face are inevitable. But where the choice comes in is where we fight. We choose our battles. We choose where we fight. If we, and that's what a lot of people, I think, struggle with, is maybe we're fighting the wrong fight. So it's not until we sit back and we look at what we're fighting for and why we're fighting for it that we actually can gain clarity through that process, to determine, is this a fight we can win, or what am I going to lose if I don't win this fight? Thinking and asking yourself these type of questions can really help you move forward in life. It's oftentimes the obstacle becomes the way to move forward. And I think that we have forgotten that in today's modern society. We as human beings, we adapt to our circumstances, and this also ties into being grateful for what we have because we get used to the pleasurable things in life that we enjoy. And and oftentimes we often forget that the universe can take those things away from us in a New York minute. They're not going to last forever. But somehow we get it in our heads that all the good things in our life are permanent, and they're not. So be grateful for what we have now, and enjoy it while you have it, because you're not always going to have it. Life
Yeah,
is
that's
going to
that's
change.
being aware of the present moment, John, and where you are, and not worrying about the future, not worrying about the past. I used to
So
tell my wife back, say, maybe 10 years ago, we were always so busy. The kids were always had Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or, choir or something coming up, something at school.
right,
And we'd go in, the dogs would be crazy. They'd be jumping all over us to make it a mess. And I would tell my wife back then, I would say, this is our life. This is the years we're going to look back on. Right now, it seems confusing and chaotic, but if we don't live in the present moment and take a moment to appreciate what we have here, we're going to forget about that, and it's going to be gone in a blink of an eye. And I still remember that day because, that was what I see as that was when my family was flourishing because they were young and kids. Now my kids are grown up, so we don't get
yeah,
that. And you
yeah.
kind of miss it.
My wife's cousin recently got married in Chicago, so my family and I went to Chicago for the wedding. And as I was thinking about the expense of that, I mean, Chicago is a wonderful town. It's an awesome town, but it's expensive. And I'm not just paying for me now. I'm paying for my wife. I'm paying for my children. And that was a huge bill associated with that. Honestly, it kind of hurt me financially to do that. And we had some assistance. I'm grateful for my in-laws who actually paid for our plane tickets to go to the wedding because it was very important for us to be there. I don't think we could have done it if it wasn't for their help. So I'm very thankful for that. But as I think about the other expenses for hotel, for food, for rental car, even though it hurt, I wouldn't give up that experience for the world because I know that, and it's already happening. I'm forgetting about the money that I spent, and I'm thinking more about that moment that I shared with my family and the priceless expression of my boy when we walked out from Union Station in downtown Chicago. We got off the train, and it lets you off right in the middle of downtown. And my little boy is looking up and saying, "Daddy, those are the biggest buildings I have ever seen in my life." You know, it made a difference to my kids. It opened the world to my children because they had never been to Chicago. They had never seen such a huge city. They'd never seen the skyscrapers. We went up into the Willis Tower and was able to see how big Chicago is and how beautiful it was. And again, I'm forgetting about the money because I'll make more money, but I can't get those. I can't make more experiences. Like I can't bring that back.
John, I don't know about you, but I don't plan on dying broke and penniless, right?
None
I'm
of
going
us
to probably
do.
die with some money in the bank, and I assume the same thing's going to happen with you. So, yeah, you have some money in the bank that you will never spend. So why worry about the money that you've just spent? Like you said, it's much
Right.
better to have the experience. It's a much rich and rewarding
Yeah.
experience than having money in the bank. And like I said, you're going to die with money in the bank, and you're never going to be able to take it with you. So
Yeah,
it's
the
no big
material
deal.
things.
Yeah.
We live in a material world. Um, Take advantage of it. Spend. It's okay to spend the money. Don't put yourself in a hole, and don't put yourself in a bad position. Think, be prudent about how you spend your money. But I think again it comes to this decision making process to say we only have so much money here to spend, but the choice is where you have choices about where you put it.
It's exactly why I came up to see you in Virginia a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And is because I had always, me and my wife had always talked about taking the kids to see Washington, D.C. And we finally realized that, they're going to be grown and gone. My daughter's a junior in college and my son's a freshman in high school. In a blink of an eye, they're going to be gone, and we're not going to have these opportunities to do this.
Right.
So let's just do it. Because before we always worried about the money and, like you were saying. So we did it, and it is, again, an experience they'll never forget. It's time that they got to meet you and hang around you. I got to meet your family, and I've met your family, but I got to spend time with them, and they got to see who I was, and I got to connect with your kids, and it's priceless.
And it is priceless. You and Jen have made, and your whole family have made such an impression on my kids. I mean, it's just it really is just, it's awesome. It was amazing going to Chicago and reconnecting with my cousins who I had not seen in over 20 years, and it's really easy to justify not spending the money, and saying I don't have it. But truth of the matter is that if you really want to make it happen, it's up to you to figure out how to make it happen, and it's up to you to prioritize what you want out of life and what's important to you in life. I have no regrets with that. I used to I've thought this way for a very, very long time, and that's probably why the Stoic philosophy hits so hard. I remember back in college, I've gone to a lot of concerts, right? I love music, and to me, going to a concert is an experience. I've seen all the big bands, all the big rock bands. I don't remember what I paid really for those tickets. I know that some of them were expensive. And I guess I do remember one. I took a concert caravan back when I was in college for $50 a day. It was to go see Pink Floyd. And it was $50, but it included round trip transportation from Gainesville, Florida to Tampa, Florida, and great seats. We got 13th row seats as part of the package, and round trip transportation. That's why I remember the price, because it was like such a, it was an experience. I still tell stories about that trip. It was great.
Your first concert was my first concert, wasn't it? The Police Synchronicity tour, right?
Yeah. Right. With the Fix and the Animals opening for them. And we're really dating ourselves here, Tom. But Martha Quinn, the
From
VJ
MTV,
from MTV, was the master of ceremonies. And I remember that. I had that old beat up Duster, Dodge, the Plymouth Duster, and then it overheated on the side of the road as we're heading down to Miami. But again, it's those struggles.
And Van Halen with David Lee Roth and the assless pants that he would wear. Yeah.
What's so funny? Because all chaps are assless.
Yeah, but he got some write-ups by some reporters because he was showing his butt on stage.
But another exercise I think for our listeners to take heed of is to think about these things that we're thankful for. Think about it in a negative way. It's called negative visualization. Consciously think about losing something that you're thankful for or grateful for. You will learn a new appreciation for that, and you will start taking steps while you can in order to show that gratefulness and to demonstrate that gratefulness. A thought is merely just a thought in your head if you don't take any action on it. And this needs to get out of your head and into the real world. So that's that's your kind of your homework lesson uh, for the for this episode is to consciously think about the loss of something that you value, and you're going to value it a lot more after doing that.
And did we answer the question why mom was right about gratitude? Because what I can think of is my mother used to always give me the, eat all your food because there's starving kids in, Ethiopia
Right.
or China.
Yeah, and we'd say, well, send it to them though, because I'm not eating that. And the dog won't. It's so bad, Mom. The dog won't even eat it.
I hope she doesn't listen to this episode.
Yeah, no, Mom did, both of our mothers, and your mom included in as far as my life. Your mom had a big impact on me as well, on how I view the world, and both of our mothers, I think, had a great impact on both of us and how we view the world and who we are as people. And it was from the time that they spent with us. I mean, your mom, gosh, talk about a taxi driver. She took us all these different places and so many fun experiences because your mom took the time to take us there. I remember this one thing. I don't know if you remember it, and it was no special occasion, but there was a new business, and this was back in the 70s, and it was a robotic ice cream shop, which, or maybe it was like an automated ice cream shop. I just remember the storefront. There was no counter. It was just like a wall, and you push buttons or something to put in the order, and then it was delivered through a window. And there were people in the back doing the work, but they made it seem like really space age and like, I guess like what was the name of that robot, like Lost in Space?
Toby.
Yeah, Toby the robot. So it was kind of
was
like,
it Toby or no? Toby was from the Sunday Funnies.
It was kind of like the same kind of.
Yeah, the one used to run around Will Rogers or whatever.
Will Robinson.
Will Robinson. That's it.
It was kind of 70s space age. So kind of cheesy, kind of kooky, but it was fun. I always remember that.
And for people that don't understand what the Sunday Funnies was, because it was local, basically what they used to do, and it was kind of ingenious. I told my daughter she should have done this on YouTube. It'd be a great thing. So if anyone wants it, you can steal my idea. But they read the comics, the Sunday Funnies, to children. That was it. It was kind of like, like Captain Kangaroo or something, but they would sit there and read the funnies, and it was the local weatherman for our Channel 7 that we had down here. And they had a robot, and he was just like the sidekick. His name was Toby.
He looked like a garbage can.
Don't you know I had that guy, Wayne Chandler was his name.
Yeah.
I think that was his name.
He was
the weatherman. He had gotten to a severe accident and became crippled, really. And I had him as a college professor at Florida International University, and for one of my broadcasting classes. And I was like, oh my God, that's the guy from Sunday Funnies. It was awesome. But he like almost put you to sleep every time he read because he had that smooth, calm voice, and he was like, this is the guy I grew up with. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. And Tom, you're my oldest friend. I've known you all my life, and I couldn't think of life really without you. I'm very grateful for that. And you continue to inspire me to become a better person. And I'm grateful for our friendship.
Here.
And I'm grateful too that, our families are friends as well. I mean, our wives are friends, our kids are friends. We're influencing each other to this day. And that, that's what it all comes down to, because life is a limited time offer. And I'm glad to have shared time with you and your family, and I look forward to creating more memories.
I have to say, I was telling my wife Jennifer the other day, I was like, doing this podcast, talking about self-help, trying to help others is helping us. I've learned so much because the research that goes into, the topics that we talk about, and you start to become it, you start to ingrain it, and you start to do it. It's just, if the more you internalize what it is and create that environment, you become part of it. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So, just as a heads up for our listeners, we're putting together a program that's going to really focus on character and, what's important to you, or what's important to me, or what's important to Tommy. It all differs. It's individual. It's personal. My natural abilities, my natural strengths and weaknesses are my own. I own that. And if I want to improve as a person, I really need to focus on those qualities of myself that I feel are important. And we're going to help you with that. We're going to help you identify parts of yourself that need your attention. And by thinking about what you want to do and what you want to be, you're not just thinking about it. It gets out of your head. You start living it. And this is really not a head exercise. This is a practical way of becoming better, a better you, naturally. We're not asking you to become someone you're not. We want you to be just who you are.
Yeah, the best possible you.
Yeah. So, and that's what this show is all about. Yes, it's not going to be easy, but you're going to struggle. But isn't that what life is all about? And again, it's not about, the battle. You're going to battle, but you can choose where you fight.
Sounds good, man. Well, I think that's it for this time. Be grateful. We try to, like John said, we like to make this evergreen. However, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'm grateful for you, the listener.
Yep. And make sure to check out swiftkickinass.com. Sign up for our new or free membership site that has John's simple spending plan. Get you out of debt. And we have a lot of other goodies about positive mindset in there. It's all for free. All you need to do is put your email in.
Yep. Not asking for anything in return.
Yep. Peace.
Peace.